cutting edge of anomaly research. You are about to experience The Evidence with your host, 3D pioneer and image analyst with Mars X3D, D.W. Gannett.
Hi there, and welcome to episode 140 of The Evidence. This is your buddy Dave over at Mars X3D. And if you're new to the channel, we're glad you're here. You'll want to learn X3D viewing. You can find it at the link below, a simple video tutorial that will turn your entire computer monitor into a giant viewmaster. And then you can join the rest of us proud weirdos, as we call ourselves, on the surface of Mars on a regular basis as we examine Martian anomalies in full stereographic 3D. We're the only channel of its kind on YouTube. In any case, you'll hear us referring to a number of different things if you're new to the channel. OOGIs is one. That stands for Objects of Geological Interest. There are also artifact candidates and outright artifacts. There are also other things that you'll want to pay attention to. For example, there are little white dots at the top of each image pair. Those are fusion dots. And when you do X3D properly, those dots come together and the image in the center is in full 3D. In every image is a data bar showing you where it's from, what mission, and how to go to the original image. Conveniently done in a short URL so anyone can type it. There are also live links below in the video description. Anyway, we have a lot to cover today, so let's start out with our list of OOGIs. Perseverance, or Percy as we call it, has delivered untold numbers of OOGIs and artifact candidates and indeed artifacts. And here's one I dug out of Percy 629. I'm calling a scooped OOGI. Any time you see a curve like that, well, they can occur in nature, but it's also kind of suspicious. So let's move in on this one. So is this a shaped block, or is it just something that occurred naturally through erosion? Those right angles and the curve itself, the even thickness, tell me that this perhaps is a shaped block, and indeed that pointed stone, that almost pyramidion in back of it, would indicate this is all part of some ruins. But we'll stick with OOGI for now because we have a lot more to look at. Here's an interesting one I wanted to share with you from Curiosity 3723 up there on the right. This is what we call an eccentric. It's a boulder, a piece of rock that doesn't match any of the geology around it, as if it was simply deposited there by some force. Now on Earth, that's normally either water or a glacier that will deposit erratics, but you can see that it's symmetrical. It's a melon shape. It's got those regular protrusions around the outside, and very strange. But we're going to continue to call this one an OOGI as we move on. Here's one I stumbled across the other day that I think is as cute as a bug. Take a look at this. It's buried way down there in the debris. See what I mean? It's sitting there staring at you, a little flat worm. And, it's actually kind of compelling. It's got the right angles. It's got that notch in the back. It almost looks like a piece of a mechanical piece of something, but we'll stick with erosion for now, playing it safe. Bob Friedman has been making some nice finds lately, and just a reminder that I always try to provide a context view so you get an idea of size and distance from the rover. This is actually an artifact candidate that slipped into my OOGI list, and don't worry, one day you'll get old too and make mistakes like that. But it is a nice find, and it does look To me, a bit like an airfoil, you can see the internal structure and the non-fractal lines. So definitely an artifact candidate from Bob Friedman. Here's another find from Percy up there on the left. And this is the end of our OOGI list, but we're rapidly approaching artifact candidate territory. Take a look at this. Let's face it, if you ran across this on Earth, I think you would think it was manufactured. You look at the even thickness and the roundness and the seeming purposeful structure of the stone. But there's something else I wanted to point out. Did you notice the recessed rectangular area there on the end, kind of in the shadow? Very unusual for an eroded object. I'm inclined to think this is actually an artifact candidate, but since something like this could possibly occur through erosion, we're going to leave it in the OOGI category for now. Okay, let's look at some artifact candidates. This one from my buddy Laszlo Shabalix. Now, I hear some of you skeptics out there, and by the way, it's good to be skeptical. What's wrong with you, Dave? It's just a rock. Take a closer look at it, and let's see what is actually there. Besides the bowling ball shape of the entire object, of course you notice those 4 spheres all in a line along the side. And look at the jumble of squared, rectangular components, badly corroded, whatever it is, directly in front of it. You know, the overall round shape, the beads, the square little components, that's what makes it an artifact candidate, at least for me. Here's another one that may possibly be an artifact candidate. See how nice and even and symmetrical this entire piece is. The rounded edges, the even thickness throughout, the even width. It almost looks like a plank. Could it be erosional? Yeah, but the non-fractal angles say otherwise. Here's another one from Percy. And there it sits, nestled in the crevice of 2 rocks. Aggravating, isn't it, that this is the best technology we have available to send to Mars? And look at the quality of this image. It's pretty much garbage. Despite the rotten imaging, we're zooming in here just so you can get an idea of what's there. What I find intriguing is that circular region that seems to be divided into 3 parts right in the center. And the fact that to the left and to the right of that appears to be reflective metal. Here's another one from Bob Friedman up on the hillside. This just seems awfully box-like and symmetrical and right-angled for it to be erosional. It could happen. Yes, indeed it could. But I believe this may be an artifact candidate. Here's another one from my buddy Laszlo, and it's sitting in the middle of all kinds of debris up there on the hill. We see what might be, or what certainly looks like, an old-fashioned key about 4 or 5 feet long. The rounded end on the left, the even width along its length, and then that nice rectangle on the end are all screaming non-fractal. But there are a couple other things that maybe you haven't noticed. Did you notice that nice rectangular box on the end with what looks like a round piece, a cylinder projecting from the right? And what I find intriguing inside the circle is this rounded area that has radial arms coming out, evenly spaced all the way around it, almost like a vent of some kind. Laszlo specializes in finding little tiny anomalies that most people overlook. I mean, looking at this sandy landscape, you wouldn't think that there's really anything to see there, would you? See it there in the rubble? I really like this one. A little square end with a hole drilled in the exact center, attached to what might be a bar of metal or something with 4 little knobs along it. It sure looks like a tool or something that belonged on a machine to me. You know, I'm not in a big rush to call something an artifact. Let's take a look at the green target there on the right. Now, that catches the eye. I mean, it's got bilateral symmetry and non-fractal angles. So let's get blurry and see what we can see. Ridiculous to have this kind of imagery on a mission that cost us hundreds of millions of dollars. Nevertheless, we do see the non-fractal angles, the symmetries, the shapes, squares on the end, even thicknesses, triangles, right angles, you name it. It's all there, but it's just too unfocused to make a clear call. We'll be coming back to this chem-cam image in just a moment, but these are such clearly made right angles. Could it be a geological? I suppose it could. But boy, oh boy, that sure looks like a structural element to me. So, because of the element of doubt, it's going to remain an artifact candidate. Okay, here's where I really stick my neck out, because these are things that I consider to be genuine artifacts. So let's start. Some of you may question why I choose to call the one on the right an artifact. In my opinion, this is clearly a shaped block. Look at the right angles. Look at the right angles incised on the surface facing us. Look at the cutout in back in the shadow. This is intelligent agency. And this one on the left, I'm not going to call that an artifact, but it's very suspicious. It has the same types of markings. It seems to be symmetrical, but there are no hard and fast non-fractals on it. Nevertheless, I would venture to say, if I put on an archaeologist hat for a moment, that this was part of the same structure. On many occasions, you've heard me talk about pyramidions, or what the Egyptians called benben stones that topped a pyramid or an obelisk. And here again we have an example in clear view in the background. Now, ordinarily, I would consider this to be just the corner of a broken block and not worthy of any further interest except for that circular portion of it on the right side. So we're going to have to get a little blurry to see that more clearly. See how the light is reflecting off the rim of that circular depression? And indeed, that depression is right in the center of the piece. So this indicates to me that this is an artifact. Also look on the sunlit side. You can faintly see that that side is depressed as well, that the edges are raised. We're back to the chem-cam image that we talked about a little bit earlier, and you can see in the yellow box, lower left, the structure that we looked at. But in the white box is something that Sarah Runcie pointed out the other day. I think most people would agree this does look like an entrance going into the hillside. So let's take a look at a couple of different aspects. Before I start pointing things out, let's move in just a little bit closer and have a look and make note to yourself what you might see here. The most obvious aspect of it is this hexagonal entrance, perfectly shaped, a perfect hexagon. So, how does that happen? And I'm sure you noticed this beautifully squared and carved facade to the right of the entrance. There even appears to be what looks like a cross engraved on the top. But here's the kicker for me. Inside the box, look carefully, and you can see steps there. Badly eroded, yes. But in archaeological terms, yeah, you see those and you know. Those are steps. A great find by Sarah Runcie. My friend Jim Hopton has taken a bit of a sabbatical from anomaly hunting, and he's back, and I'm glad he is, because Jim has an excellent eye for finding some very intriguing anomalies, and here's just one of them. Talk about non-fractal angles. Wow. There's a sphere glinting in the sunlight, and it's mounted inside some kind of support structure, and in back of it another item that's non-fractal, but we're going to concentrate on the sphere for now and zoom in. Now, I challenge any rational person to look at this and tell me it's not artificial. I would say that it looks like a blue steel ball shining in the sunlight, surrounded and mounted inside of a white rim, and whatever that's mounted in, don't know what it is, but it shouts intelligent agency. We'll wrap things up today with an outstanding find by Bob Friedman. There it is, right in front of you. A non-fractal artifact. A couple of cubes, and you can see the structure within them. Let's get a little bit closer. Don't you just want to walk over there and pick it up? Of course, it's pretty heavy. This is a pretty big item if you look at the context view, but boy, oh boy, what a great find by Bob Friedman. I want to thank you for stopping by today. You know, earlier I said we're the only channel of its kind on YouTube, and that is a fact. But there are two other channels that offer the occasional X3D images. One of them is the Real Jimmy Roberts 1, a terrific channel, one you'll want to check out. The other is Mars the Second Genesis, and both of them offer X3D images. And of course, Jimmy has marsfam.net, which is worth a visit. Also, my own website will be up and running pretty soon here. In the meantime, if you'd like to see how easy it is to support this work, click the join button, and for less than 10 cents a day, you can help make this work happen, perhaps on a more regular basis. In the meantime, if you want to get in touch, or if you have an anomaly to share with me, simply use the email listed below, marsx3d@gmail.com. I promise I'll take a look. I do get behind because I kind of get swamped, but I'll take a look at it and let you know what I think. In the meantime, all you proud weirdos out there, you know who you are. Stay safe and stay weird. This is your buddy Dave over at Mars X3D. Be well.